hadn't planned to come back home that summer. My internship had fallen through at the last minute, and my roommate had taken a sublet that didn't include me. One domino toppled the next, and within 48 hours I was back in my car, driving down roads I hadn't seen since high school, wondering if this town still remembered me. My parents were traveling, some yoga retreat in Costa Rica, my mom's idea, so the house wasn't an option. That's when Aunt Claire offered, or rather insisted. "Stay here," she'd said over the phone. "It's just me in this big house now, and I still make a pretty decent breakfast." She wasn't my blood relative, just Mom's best friend from college, the kind who blurred the lines between family and friendship. I used to call her Aunt Claire out of habit, the way kids are trained to label grown-ups, but she'd always felt different, cooler, looser, a little mysterious in the way only artists are. So I pulled into her driveway 2 days later, my car humming beneath me like it was just as unsure as I was. She opened the door before I even rang the bell. "Still hate knocking, huh?" she teased, her smile wide and warm. She wore a thin black tank top, a flannel tied around her waist, and cut-off jeans. Her hair was twisted into a bun, a paintbrush stuck through it like a flag. Same old Claire, and yet a not quite. "You cut your hair," I said, stepping inside. She raised an eyebrow. "Look at you, all observant and grown." I dropped my bag by the stairs and took in the place. Same smell of coffee and lemon oil. Same creaky step halfway up. It looked like a magazine layout. A blend of earth tones, mismatched textures, shelves full of art books and ceramic bowls she probably made herself. "It hasn't changed," I said, running my fingers along the back of the couch. She shrugged. "Why fix what still works?" Later, over dinner, we caught up. She poured wine without asking, and I didn't bother pretending to hesitate. She'd always had a way of making things feel casual, like nothing was ever a big deal. We sat out on the back patio, fireflies blinking through the hedges, her dog asleep at her feet. We talked about school, about the music I was making, about her gallery shows and how she'd stopped dating a guy who collected teeth. That one caught me mid-sip. "You've changed," she said at one point, watching me. I glanced up. In a good way or a bad way? Her lips curved, but she didn't answer right away. "Let's just say I wouldn't recognize you on the street if you walked by. You're not the same kid who used to sneak extra waffles when no one was looking." I smiled, but there was something about the way she said it that made the air feel heavier. The guest room was at the end of the hall across from hers. Small, clean, full of sunlight in the mornings and the sound of wind chimes at night. The first evening passed quietly. I unpacked slowly, touched the spines of books she'd left on the shelf, flipped through a few pages before sleep pulled me under. The second night, I noticed the silence. Not the kind that's empty, the kind that listens. I'd gone to the kitchen for water and found her there, barefoot, hair down, wearing a long cardigan over a tank top and shorts. She turned when she heard me and smiled sleepily. "Still a night owl?" she asked. "Couldn't sleep." She leaned against the counter, her fingers wrapped around a mug. "The walls are thin in this house," she said. "You used to snore when you were little. Sounded like a chainsaw. I don't snore anymore. Shame." We stood there a few minutes longer, the low hum of the fridge filling the space between our words. When I went back to my room, I lay awake for over an hour. I told myself it was just the change in beds, the too soft pillow, the unfamiliar ceiling. But deep down, I knew it was something else. It was the way she'd looked at me just a second too long. It was how her voice softened when she said, "You've changed." It was how, when she'd walked past me earlier, her hand brushed my lower back. Lightly, barely there, but enough to notice. By the third day, I found myself memorizing her rhythms. She made coffee barefoot, watered the plants in her robe, always left music playing somewhere in the house. Slow jazz, old vinyl, ambient stuff with no lyrics. She moved like she was always halfway into a dance. I told myself I was overthinking, reading too much into things. But then there were the moments I couldn't explain. Like when she adjusted the hem of her shirt in front of me and said, "Do you think this is too much for around the house?" Or when she passed behind me at the sink and let her fingers skim across the back of my arm. Little things, but they added up, and I didn't know what to do with them. That night, I heard her laugh from her room, low, muffled, like she was on the phone or talking to herself. I sat on my bed, restless, the sheets too hot and the room too still. I opened the door. The hallway was dark, quiet again. Her door was cracked open an inch. I stood there for longer than I'd admit, then turned back into my room and closed the door, heart hammering harder than it should have been. By the end of the week, we'd settled into a kind of rhythm. Coffee in the mornings, her laptop open at the dining table while I wandered the kitchen, half awake. Midday errands together, groceries, picking up a frame for one of her paintings, replacing a shower head that leaked like it was trying to send Morse code. Evenings were the softest part of the day. Lights dimmed, music low, candles flickering like they knew something we didn't. We didn't talk about boundaries, but we didn't need to. They were being redrawn slowly. One evening she made roasted vegetables and some lemon herb chicken, plating it like she was feeding an art critic. I offered to do dishes and she waved me off. "You're my guest. You keep saying that. Because you keep pretending you're not." Later, I brought my guitar out to the porch, played something half-written, unsure where the chords were going. She stood leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes soft. "You still get that look when you play," she said. "What look?" "Like you're somewhere else. Somewhere no one can follow." I looked down. "You used to say that when I was 15. I still mean it." A breeze passed between us. It smelled like jasmine. I didn't know what was happening. Or maybe I did and just didn't want to say it out loud. That night, I went to bed early, but didn't sleep. Not really. I stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours, listening to the distant shuffle of her footsteps, the sound of a drawer opening, the quiet clink of a glass set on the counter. Then there was a knock. Light, barely there. I sat up, heart already racing. "Yeah," I called out. The door creaked open just enough for her to peer in. She was in pajamas, loose gray pants, and a soft white t-shirt that clung in all the places it shouldn't. Her hair was down, brushing her shoulders, and she looked comfortable, familiar, but not innocent. "Sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to wake you. I wasn't asleep." She hesitated in the doorway. "I was just going to put new sheets in the closet and remembered I stored some of them in here. Do you mind?" I stood quickly, brushing imaginary dust off my shirt. "No, of course not." She stepped inside. The air shifted immediately. The room felt smaller, warmer. She crossed to the closet, crouched down, and started rifling through a box. I tried not to stare. I really did. "I always forget how much stuff I've collected over the years," she said, her voice muffled. She pulled out a folded set of sheets, held them up. "These are the soft ones." She turned, and for a moment, we were face to face in the narrow space between the bed and closet. She didn't move. Neither did I. Her eyes flicked down to my chest, then back up. "What cologne is that?" she asked. I blinked. I think it's cedarwood. Something my ex gave me." She smiled faintly. "Smells good." There was a silence, a thick one. Then she nodded toward the bed. "You can sit, you know. I'm not going to search your room." I gave a weak laugh and sat on the edge. She followed a second later, sat beside me, close, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her skin through the cotton of her shirt. Her arm brushed mine when she adjusted the sheets in her lap. She didn't move away. Then she said it, casually, like asking about the weather. "Move closer," she said, turning her head just slightly. "I don't bite." My breath caught. I didn't move. Not immediately. I just looked at her. Her eyes met mine. Steady. Unapologetic. She smiled slowly. Not wide. Not teasing. Something softer. Something braver. "I'm kidding," she added. But the tone of her voice said otherwise. And that was the moment everything changed. Because I realized she wasn't kidding. Not really. I shifted just slightly. Our knees touched. Her hand was still on the sheets, but her fingers began to slowly twist the fabric. I tried to think of something to say. Anything. But words weren't safe right now. "I always forget how grown you are," she said suddenly. My voice barely came out. "That makes two of us." Another silence. This one longer. Then she stood. Just like that. She smoothed her shirt, picked up the sheets. "I'll let you sleep," she said. "Didn't mean to interrupt your night." I looked up at her, but she didn't meet my eyes this time. She walked to the door, paused. "I wasn't trying to confuse you," she added, her back still to me. "I'm not confused," I said. She looked over her shoulder. "Aren't you?" I didn't answer, because maybe I was, but also maybe not. She stepped out and closed the door behind her. Quietly, not like someone retreating, more like someone waiting. I sat on the bed for a long time, staring at the floor, trying to understand what had just happened, or what almost had. The next morning was full of silence, but not the empty kind. It was the kind that hums beneath the surface, like a held breath, like unfinished music. I found her already in the kitchen, hair twisted up again, wearing a long linen robe and pouring coffee into mismatched mugs. "You sleep okay?" she asked without looking up. I nodded. Eventually, she slid a mug toward me, eyes scanning her phone. "There's leftover quiche in the fridge. Unless you're one of those cereal guys. I'll take the quiche." She gave a small smile, but neither of us commented on last night. All day, we orbited each other like we didn't want to touch the memory. She worked on a canvas out on the porch while I reorganized the guest room closet just for something to do. Around 4, she came in with smudges of blue paint across her wrist. "Want to help me pick a movie for tonight?" she asked. "Something that doesn't make me hate the world." I shrugged. "You're the artist. You pick the vibe." She raised an eyebrow. "That's dangerous trust." And maybe it was. By 9, we were both curled up on opposite sides of the couch. Blanket tossed over both our legs, bowl of popcorn between us, some indie film playing in slow, quiet tones. Felt safe, almost normal, until the power cut out. Just like that, movie gone, lights dead, a soft electrical groan echoing through the walls. We froze. Then she laughed. "Wow, okay. That's never happened during one of my movie nights." I looked at her through the dark. Her face barely visible, lit only by the faint orange flicker from the solar garden lights outside. "I think the whole block's out," I said, glancing toward the window. "Guess we're going analog tonight," she said. "Let me find a candle." She disappeared into the hallway. I sat still, heart beating a little too fast. When she came back, she carried a single tall candle in a thick glass jar. "Vanilla and something musky. This is the only one that isn't buried in paintbrushes," she said. She set it on the coffee table and sat beside me again. Closer this time. The blanket shifted. Her bare knee brushed against mine and stayed there. Neither of us moved. "So," she said softly, "do we talk now? Or do we just sit here pretending we're not?" I turned toward her. Pretending what? She exhaled slowly through her nose, like she'd been holding something in too long. That something's changed, she said. That it's been changing. There it was. No preface. No joke to soften the edge. I didn't answer, because what could I say that wouldn't make it worse? Or more real? She looked down at her hands, fingers twisting gently in her lap. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. You're not, I said too quickly. It's just new. For me too, she said. That surprised me. I don't usually sit in the dark with 23-year-olds and say weird things, she added, trying to smile. I'm not just any 23-year-old. She looked up. I know. Another pause. Another soft ripple of silence between us. Then, quietly, she asked, "Why didn't you move last night?" I blinked. When I told you to come closer, I swallowed. Because I didn't know if I should. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. And now, the candle flickered. I'm still not sure, I said. But I haven't stopped thinking about it. She leaned her head slightly to the side, studying me. You want to know a secret? She asked. I nodded. I wasn't looking for anyone to stay here this summer, she said. I've been good alone, peaceful, predictable. Her hand inched across the couch cushion. It landed beside mine. But then you showed up, and all of a sudden, I noticed the quiet a little more. Not because I missed it, but because I didn't. My throat was dry. Claire. She looked up. Still calling me Aunt Claire? I hesitated. No, I said. Just Claire. She nodded slowly. Her hand moved again. This time her pinky touched mine. I keep asking myself if this is crazy, she said. But the only thing that feels crazy is pretending nothing's happening. I turned toward her fully. Something is happening. I know. The candlelight caught her features in a way I hadn't seen before. Shadowed, soft, real. She took a breath. Then slowly, deliberately, she stood up. I watched her, unsure of what came next. She held out her hand. I don't want to keep guessing, she said. Just come with me. I took her hand. We walked quietly down the hall. She pushed open the door to her room and sat on the edge of the bed, still holding my hand. Then she let go and patted the space beside her. I sat. We were silent. And then she said it, the sentence that froze time. Move closer, she said again, voice low and sure. I don't bite. It wasn't a joke this time. I did. Slowly. We sat side by side, close enough that I could hear her breath. Feel it. Our shoulders touched. Her hand rested on the bed between us, fingers open. I placed mine over hers. Neither of us looked away. And in that moment, nothing was certain except this. The line between what we were and what we were becoming had vanished. The morning light looked different. It poured in through the slats of the blinds in long golden stripes that stretched across the floorboards, the wall, the edge of the bed. The candle had long since burned out, leaving behind the faint scent of vanilla and melted wax. Everything was quiet. I sat up slowly. Claire was still asleep beside me, her arm draped over a pillow, her breathing soft and even. The sheets were tangled between us. Not from chaos, but from the way we'd shifted throughout the night, always near, never too far. We hadn't crossed the line, but we had erased everything that kept us on either side of it. My shirt was still on. So was hers. There had been no rush, no fire, just stillness. Skin against skin only in passing. Silence louder than any touch. We had stayed like that, hands touching, legs brushing, suspended in something we didn't dare name. I slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen, not wanting to wake her. The familiar sounds of morning helped ground me. water filling the kettle, the soft clink of mugs, the hiss of the stove. It was the same house, the same air, but something fundamental had shifted. I was pouring coffee when I heard the floorboards creak behind me. She appeared barefoot, hair still messy from sleep, wearing the same oversized t-shirt she had the night before. She leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "Morning," she said. "Hey," I replied. She walked over and reached for the second mug I had already poured. "You remembered how I take it," she said, surprised. "Some things stick." We stood at the counter, side by side, sipping in silence. After a while, she spoke. "Do you regret it?" I turned to look at her. Nothing happened. She gave me a look. "Something happened." I nodded. "But no, I don't regret it." She studied me for a long moment, like she was checking for cracks in my voice. "I don't either," she said finally. "But I still don't know what it means. Maybe we don't need to yet." Claire sat down at the kitchen table, curling her legs beneath her like she always did. I joined her. The light hit her face just right, soft shadows under her cheekbones, that small furrow between her eyebrows when she was thinking too hard. "I was afraid," she said suddenly. "Of what?" "Of what I might feel if I let myself stop pretending you were just a guest. Just the kid who used to sneak cookies before dinner." I smiled faintly. "I haven't done that in years." "I know," she whispered. "That's the problem." She wrapped both hands around her mug, her thumbs slowly circling the ceramic rim. "I didn't invite you here to start something," she said. "But now that something started, I don't want to erase it either." "We don't have to name it," I said. "Not yet." She nodded. "But we can't ignore it either." "No," I agreed. "We really can't." The rest of the day moved slower than usual. We didn't hover around each other, but we didn't keep distance either. There was a quiet ease between us, like a string had been pulled taut and now hung gently, just above the floor, no longer at risk of snapping. She painted on the porch in the afternoon. I watched her from the window for a long time, her hand moving steadily, lips pressed in concentration, sunlight dancing along her shoulder. She didn't know I was watching, or maybe she did. Either way, she didn't stop. That night, she didn't say anything when I passed her in the hallway and gently touched her arm. And I didn't say anything when she reached back. There were no declarations, no dramatic conversations, just presence, just proximity, and in a way that felt more intimate than anything else could have. The next morning, we ended up walking through the neighborhood trail, something we hadn't done since I was a teenager. We didn't talk much at first, just let the gravel crunch underfoot, the wind rustle the trees, the birds flit between fence posts like they'd seen all this before. She wore a hoodie, her sleeves pulled over her hands, and her sunglasses perched in her hair. After a while, she spoke. "Have you told anyone you're staying here?" "No." "Good." I looked at her. "Would it be bad if I did?" She hesitated. "Not bad. Just complicated." "I can handle complicated." Claire stopped walking, turned toward me. "I don't want to hurt you," she said, "and I don't want to become a memory you can't explain." I stepped closer. "You already were." Her face softened. We stood there like that, surrounded by trees and silence and everything unspoken. Then she reached for my hand. Not in a dramatic way, not even romantically, just anchored. "I don't know where this is going," she said. "Neither do I. But I know what it's not." "What?" "A mistake." We started walking again, still hand in hand. Not rushing, not hiding, just walking. And for now, that was enough.